Hey, what's up, y'all? We're back with another one. Let's check this clip out.
Held against him. Now, as it relates to Stephen A. Smith, look, the guy's a workhorse. He works hard. He's on various shows. And for better or worse, he is the face of ESPN, or at least he's the more acceptable one compared to the other guy, the former punter. So, I mean, is he worth it? I'm not so sure any vocation is worth that much. He's not curing cancer here, but he does play a large role, and the market is the market.
I want to play you a clip before I chime in here and be the hater and the bad guy, as always. I want to play you a clip from Patrick Bet-David where he calls Stephen A. Smith the GOAT of sports commentary. The GOAT of sports commentary. Steve, I've nicknamed you the Korean Cosell. I think most people consider Howard Cosell the GOAT of sports commentary. Stephen A. Smith is again, this is Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. This is Nikola Jokic versus, am I even comfortable calling Stephen A. Joel Embiid? But Stephen A. Smith, is this a worthy classification? Is he the Michael Jordan of sports commentary? That just, go ahead. Go, you first.
Well, my view is this. I've never actually heard anyone outside of Patrick Bet-David actually say you're the greatest of all time in that field. Now, is he going to be the most well-paid? Is he the most exposed or overexposed? Is he the one that's out there the most? Is he the most ubiquitous? Yes, but does that necessarily make him the greatest commentator of all time? You can make an argument he's not the greatest commentator now, but again, it's a little bit different though, Jason, because of YouTube and independent content creators, you get a lot more knowledgeable voices on specific subjects, whether it's the NBA, the NFL, all the way down to politics and culture, that I don't know if there isn't a Howard Cosell anymore. I mean, when I think back on the great sports commentators, and do you mean to a specific sport or in general? I know a lot of people don't like him, but Bob Costas for a long time was thought of as that guy, right? Then obviously there was Howard Cosell, who was incredibly dominant. But I don't know. But I'll be honest with you. When I thought of Stephen A. Smith, I think of him now as being potentially the most well-paid. I never thought of him as the greatest. I don't think he knows enough, to be honest with you.
Let me give you another candidate. Again, if you're going to put Costas in there, which I think is worthy. But Bryant Gumbel's commentaries on Real Sports used to be destination, hey, can't see it. It would make news. What he had to say, the leagues would care and all that. Stephen A. Smith, without Twitter, what would he be? I mean, yes, there's Twitter reaction. Yes, there's blogosphere reaction. But before the blogosphere, before Twitter, there was, and Stephen A. existed during this time frame when he was out there as a commentator competing with everybody on equal terms, basically, at newspapers. When newspapers ran, there'd be a guy in Philly, a guy in Chicago, a guy in LA, a guy in Denver, guy in Kansas City. And we were all competing. Miami, we were all competing. Stephen A. Smith was virtually non-existent. He gets on ESPN, they tilt everything his direction, and look, I know I sound bitter and jealous, but I'm just keeping it real. Like, we live in a fantasy world, and people like Patrick Bet-David appear out of nowhere to help sell these other fantasies and other plans. But I mean, cut it out. As many mistakes, as many times. I mean, the guy went on, he's a hardcore New York Knicks fan. In the middle of their season, he's calling names of players who aren't even on the roster, who aren't on the team, who haven't played. I mean, and this is, if that was a one-off, if it wasn't a consistent 2 or 3 times a year thing, what is his profound commentary? Steve, and I know I'm asking a biased outside observer. I got to be careful because I just sound like I'm glossing myself. But Steve, you sit here and you can, Jason, remember when you wrote that Las Vegas column? Remember when you the Don Imus thing. You remember when you did this? Remember when you did that? What's your remember when Stephen A. Smith said or did anything? What is
nothing? I mean, Jason, I can honestly tell you this, and I've told you this before. The last debate kind of conversation show that I ever watched on a consistent basis, and I watched about every single one. Well, speak for yourself. First with Colin Cowherd, and then when you brought in Marcellus Wiley, I literally watched every episode. And then when you departed, I tried to give it a week or two, and I said, yeah, I'm going to unplug this. Stephen A. Smith, I actually did like his basketball coverage. I did. When he was specifically a guy out of Philadelphia, and he could kind of give you the inside scoop of what was going on with AI and his battles with Larry Brown, I found that to be compelling. And again, I told you this long ago, when he did that show on ESPN2, quite frankly, I think that was the name of that show. I enjoyed that show. I actually watched it on a regular basis, but I thought back then he was more contained about what he knew and what he spoke about. Now, I always find it interesting when he gives a boxing take. People actually think he knows boxing. Okay, so here's the thing that gets me about the general media in sports when they talk boxing. You're considered knowledgeable if you know more than 5 guys. And there are times he gives like these, there are times he gives like these opinions. I'm like, that is just insanity. It kind of reminded me, everyone thinks Jalen Rose is like this great boxing fan and he knows the sport. And one time he said, boy, you know a fight I'd like to watch? And we're all like, yeah. He goes, Canelo Alvarez against Vasyl Lomachenko. And I said, yeah, outside of the fact they're about 6 weight classes apart, and maybe you could play them in a video game simulation. And that's what I mean is like a lot of these guys know a little about a lot, but they don't know a lot about certain subjects. They really don't. And they're stretched too thin. And I do think with Stephen A. Smith, there's a bit of an overexposure. They tried to shoehorn him in to the UFC coverage about 5-6 years ago when they went over to ESPN. And Jason, that went over like passing gas in church. He got completely exposed.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Make sure to click the link in my bio. You will get a $30K bonus as soon as you sign up. Make sure to deposit money. If you deposit $50, $100, $200, it's up to you. As soon as you deposit money, you will get your $30K bonus. Then you use that bonus, you flip it, make even more money. So for example, if you invest $100, you'll be able to make that times 100. So imagine if you claim this bonus, $30K, and use that as well, you're gonna be able to make a lot of money. Make sure to click the link in my bio and sign up and deposit money. So the clip of the show, y'all, that was Jason, and he was speaking about Stephen A. Smith, and he was vehemently denying that he's jealous of Stephen A. Smith because Stephen A. Smith, he's expected to get a $23 million check every year, and that's a contract from his employer. And Jason, he's been saying that Stephen A. Smith is greedy for not accepting this contract. He wants even more money. And to be honest, I actually agree with Jason because a couple of years ago, Jason and Stephen A. Smith, they were at the same level. And even then, Jason Whitlock had a lot of things to say about Stephen A. Smith. So I actually agree, I actually believe Jason Whitlock rather that he is not jealous of Stephen A. Smith. And he called him out. He said that you were part of a group, and that group is Charlemagne, you, Stephen Jackson, Matt Barnes. And this group was called the Get Along Group. And this group only speaks bad about black athletes. And he said that Stephen A. Smith called Coleman Brown a bust, even though Coleman Brown was in the NBA for 10 years. You're not going to be a bust and play in the NBA for 10 years. It's impossible. He called Stephen A. Smith out. So, I want to know what y'all think about this. Do you agree with Jason or not? Let me know in the comment section. And I'll see you in the next video.